She's passionate about monitoring and understanding the quality of soil, water, and air environment in order to protect it. And she has a patent. She's a great science communicator who is poised with influencing policies with her collected evidence and increasing the space for women and girls in science. Her findable Ask Google recognitions and awards make her a great influence in science. She has published her works in over 90 reputable journals and has well-rated book and book chapters. Well-traveled Eucharia holds BSc, MSc, and PhD in environmental biochemistry at the University of Port Harcourt and has postdoctoral experiences in Poland, England, and the United States of America. So join me to welcome Dr. Nwaichi as I invite her to the virtual podium. So Doc, over to you.
Wow, some participants already.
Come on, carry out this.
Dr. Eucharia, you are muted. Can you unmute? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much for that. I am now talking about our topic for the day, research writing. And I'm saying today, the learning outcomes for which we have gathered today will include understanding meaning and essence of research and publishing, making disclosure types and tips for those, preparing manuscript sessions, how to do those. We will use IMRAD, of course, and writing a working title and abstract for participants' papers and developing the body of the paper using appropriate structure. This would constitute our learning outcomes. So research, like many of us do, is a creative and systematic work undertaken to increase the stock of knowledge. So systematic to be underlined because there is an established system or method of doing. Otherwise, it's not going to be a research. It can be a guesswork. But for it to qualify as research, it has to follow a system, an adopted system or method of doing, maybe by professional bodies or by people in the field. And remember that it entails collection of data. So data will be collected, documented. If you look at that picture where I was carrying out experiment, so you can see my notebook in my lab coat's pocket. So meaning that you have to document the data as you get them. It's very critical because when we lose this data, we start manipulation. But today is not the day for ethics, so I won't deviate. So we now will subject the data to analysis because in research writing, we say, squeeze the data, squeeze it, and it will confess. It will bring out the truth in it. So we do critical analysis of the data and then interpret the data to generate that new knowledge we're looking forward to, or even knowledge that may present old knowledge in a new way of understanding it so it can contribute to human problem solution. I also want to tell you that researchers should conduct their work with the highest level of integrity, transparency, avoiding conflicts of interest. So if you're working for company A and you want to investigate something about your company, you shouldn't be the lead investigator because there may be this conflict of interest. Collegiality cannot be overemphasized. We need to work in compassion. If you look at this picture, you see me there at the extreme left, and you see the team, the collaborative team from different countries, and you can see the flag there showing that this is a diplomatic kind of cooperation. So we have team from Czech Republic, from Poland, and we're looking at the boundary waste to solve a problem. We're using science diplomacy to solve a problem between two countries. So this is what we can achieve when there is collegiality in the design of the research. It's very important. I like this slide from AutoAid. They said, if you want to be a researcher, there are two kinds of mindset that you will exhibit. You decide what you want. I have highlighted this one in green to show I recommend this, and this one in red to show please do not go there. You may try to look at challenges with the strategy of avoiding, and then the other one, embracing. So if you want to see challenges, embrace them as stepping stones, that will be good. But if you avoid challenges always as a researcher, you will not make a headway. You will not grow. You remain rounding round the circle. Obstacles will come as researchers. You can name them if we're in a room, in a physical room. We can break into groups and try to identify the obstacles that militate against our research. Don't give up. It's only those with fixed mindset that will give up. Persist in the face of setbacks. Go around it. And if you succeed, then you will be making a headway. Make effort. Don't see effort made in research as worthless. You know, sometimes we ask ourselves, why am I stressing myself, sleeping in the research in the laboratory and having fruitless meetings? Maybe at the end of the day, like the one I had last week, we didn't seem to make a headway. Everybody had their opinions. So people were so opinionated, but we don't give up. We go and ventilate, relax, and come back to the drawing table. And then you can see that that path will take us to mastery, where we need to be. Criticism, our researchers should be embraced, not to be perceived as negative feedback, because we learn a lot from criticism, whether in the methods or in the approach or in the interpretation of results. It doesn't matter. Perceive the criticism as a point of learning. If you're threatened by successes of other researchers, you're not making a headway and you can't. You remain at a point, moving around the circle. So I want you to find inspiration in the successes of other researchers and also to learn lessons from what they are doing. So you'll be deterministic in your view if you follow the red, and you will also become a free researcher, a researcher that has been set free to conquer. That's the only way we can do innovation, when we are free in mind. This beautiful slide is from the American Chemical Society, talking about why publishing. Why do we publish? Many researchers want to publish. We have the personal gain and the public gain. So under the personal gain, people want to graduate. A lot of people in this room would like to buy PhD degrees or master's degree or other kinds of certifications. So that may make you publish to gain this. To build your CV. If you put in your CV, I have 50 publications, I have 20 publications, you know, you can showcase that and can use that for applications, that your CV is enriched with your publications. And that can also make you get noticed by your employers, especially when your employment has to do with research, like those in the university. You get noticed if you have a lot of publications, you make the news. Those in research institutes, those in R&D companies, and it makes you famous. People give you award because you're publishing, okay, in reputable places anyway. And then you may want to become rich. People ask me, how do I become rich? There are publications that you make, they mustn't be research articles. They can be in magazines, and people place dollars, pounds, and euros on your head just because of your publications. And you can also gain royalties from some kinds of publications, so you can become rich. Public gain, good of humanity. You find a problem in the society and you attempt to solve it using research that is good of the humanity. And that keys into the SDGs that we have, 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And you also would like to advance knowledge. That's public gain. Where the knowledge is, we want to take it to the next level. If you see our friend here, Lavoisier, in this picture, who had to fight to make sure that phlogiston theory that focus on oxygen, in chemistry. So he had to advance the knowledge he gained in researching around oxygen and their contribution to making fire, to combustion. And he was made to perform the experiment before the commissioner of the Royal Academy of Science, then very famous in science in Paris, for him to make recognition and also to change the existing theory, which was very fixated. So you have your own role to play. Share work with peers, that can be a public gain. If people have to continue researching from where you stopped, is a gain for the public. So how do you measure impact? I ask, is it H index? May not necessarily be. H index can be a way to measure because it takes cognizance of the years of publishing, both in the journals and for the individuals before it can make calculations. So sometimes you don't have to base it on H index. It can be a useful indicator, but there are other indices that you may consider to know that you're making impact. People are using your work, maybe writing policy briefs from your work and is influencing policies actively. And also people are finding methodologies that can take their work forward and make contributions. So we said we're going to look at disclosures. So there are 3 P's that we appreciate in scientific disclosure. These are the poster, the presentation, we call the oral, and publication. So if you look at the features, poster here that you can see image showing poster presentation, we have longevity as an item. For poster, longevity is short because you have a short time to make presentations to your audience and a short time. If you're making presentation oral, like Dr. Zainab is making here, you see that it's also short. You're trying to make presentation between maybe 30 minutes and 1 hour or 2 hours or 20 minutes or 10 minutes. So it's quite short. Publication that we're focusing on today will be forever. If you go to Google and ask Google, tell me my research, publication by XYZ, you're going to see it forever. Even for those who have gone, who are dead for 15 years, 20 years, even those who died in 1940s, as far as the world has started documenting, even when they wrote on scrolls, you can find them. Interaction types is very high with poster. That's why I like it. We'll look at it in the next slide a little bit more. Presentation is medium interaction like we're having today, depending on how much time you have. So we say, oh, you have only 5 minutes to ask questions. So it's medium. Publication is low. When you publish it there is no interaction, very low, except to pick up the contact author and write them. And they are liberty to respond to your email or through ResearchGate on the spot communication. Work described. So you have some portion of the work described in poster, same thing in presentation, but complete in publication. Peer review is minimal. So making a poster, you don't have time for peer review. You just go ahead. Presentation, something minimal. But for publication, a lot of peer review go on there. So like I promised that we'll look more into poster anatomy. So if you want to anatomize poster, this is what it should look like. Some of us have made poster presentations. Some of us are planning to make one today. So we want you to do away with abstracts in your poster. So every other section standard is okay, except the conference organizers have given you a template to comply with, and you have to do that. So basically you have this, and you can see the allotment of spaces. So that shows you, like the literature, you have only 4 lines showing you literature should be quite small. Even if you consulted 40 materials, you have to just bring out maybe the most recent or the most important, maybe 2 or 3 to put there, because you need to maximize space. It's just 1 page. Either is a landscape or portrait. And that is you in black, standing and talking to your audience. This is very interesting. Having audience who are interested in your work, unlike the presentation where you have many who are not interested, they're just sitting there and trying to confuse you when you look at them. But poster, you have those who are interested. That's why they visit your poster. So you have to connect personally with the audience that have come to look at your poster and make new collaboration. I actually like poster presentations. Get feedback on new experiments. They tell you, oh, this new experiment is really nice. I've not thought about this method. Did you manipulate something? You say, oh, yes. You know, it can be very exciting. For students or new language students, is a good way to start with poster. So you may want to try it. It brings opportunities for mentorship for postdoc, like the last poster I had in Kenya in November. And then someone told me, oh, this kind of research, I'm actually looking for a postdoc. And I announced to my Women in Science platform that we have a postdoc opportunity. Who has research interest in this area, you may like to take up the opportunity. People have advertised their postdoc opportunities that they're looking at your research. Research visits, collaborations can be bettered. Know your limitations, decide the cost, the deadlines you have, and prepare well, because you may be selected for an oral presentation, short one, even as it's a poster. It happened to me in Florida when I went for YES meeting, the Young Environmental Scientists meeting. So I got selected for short presentation, but initially it was a poster, but on the spot I was called out to make short presentations. So that's why I said you should prepare well in case you're selected. We call it spotlight, to make a spotlight of your poster. So know your audience, adapt the message to your audience. When they come, hello, are you a biologist? I'm a chemist, but I'm interested in, so you know he's a chemist. So you drop a lot of your jargons in biology and try to talk a little bit broad and general. So prepare in advance. Go to their talks also to find out. You can listen to other people and then invite them. When you go there, maybe your poster session is in the afternoon. In the morning session, don't sleep in your room preparing for your poster. You should prepare before the day. Go to their sessions, and while you're talking about, oh, you worked on this plant-based technology, yeah, but instead of plants, I use microorganisms. I've been talking about it in the afternoon. So you're inviting them to your poster. Practice your short talk, establish the background that the listener has. The lead listener through poster, don't read directly from the poster. Just own it and talk about it. And let them lead you. When they come in and they go to method, the method of Ekundayo 2007, I've been looking for it. Don't go back to the title, start from the method of Ekundayo, tell them what is unique. And if you made any modifications, start from there and go back to the presentation. That's how you keep them engaged. For oral presentation, I may not like to dwell on a lot of it. The presentation, the second P, you should know your format, the time given to you, the question and answer sessions, expectations by the organizers, which I did in this presentation. The audience who will be listening, I know my audience today. You may be in a parallel session talk. That means that the presentations are going on the same time. How do you attract people to your talk? Try not to cover everything. Like today we're doing scientific writing. If I have all the time in the world, I'll go into peer review system. I go into a lot of things, but today I have focused on what I told you you will achieve. Don't do everything, so you can make sure your audience taking what you planned for them for that day, okay? So the good rule is no more than a slide per minute. You have a 20-minute presentation, you have 80 slides. And some students, I asked them, why do you have 80? They said, I really know where I want to talk about, so I will jump. Why do you want to jump? If it's not important for the audience at the moment, kick them out. So you actually have what you will speak on, and then make sure why, how. Why did you conduct that study and how you did it, and what you found out is covered in that presentation. Practice, practice, practice. Anticipate questions and try to provide answers to them before the presentation. So before publication for the third P, you want to plan ahead. Check with the journal before presenting preprints. Open notebooks, which is like a video you make of all the research and you put them publicly. Recorded presentation, thesis, from where you are writing the paper. Check with the journal before you do that. I was a victim, or I'm a victim. Criteria for judgment. Sufficient detail to allow replication. The reviewers will consider this. Public accessibility, you're not holding data. Formal so distribution on the internet may be considered according to science journal. Prior publication may compromise the originality of the paper or summation. So this happened to me. I did preprints before publication. And when I sent it, they said I plagiarized and they were quoting my work, which is on a preprint. So you may want to worry about that. Providing preprints, granting interviews on the research you've not published, discussing data with members of the media, or participating in press conferences in advance may also bring about rejection of the paper. This is by Cell Journal. So consider all of this. So in publication, the third P, we have the anatomy, the title. You can see that encased in my balloon, the red balloon. So you have authorship stroke affiliation. That means the name of the authors and where they are coming from, their affiliation, your institution where you work or where you're studying, and make sure that that is complete. Then the abstract, comply with what they have given you. If there are word limits, make sure you comply with that. And we'll look at abstracts much later. The other one is graphical abstract. The image you find there, normally abstracts don't have images, but you can have a graphical abstract, especially if they are required. Some journals would like graphical abstract. So you also would like to have keywords. Keywords will help your work to be findable. So most of us don't spend time in putting keywords. So it can also militate against citation on your work. So choose appropriate keywords that are related to your work. So when people type such keywords on the Google page or other search engines, they'll be able to find your work. Introduction is also a part of the paper in the anatomy. Methods, how you did it. Results, discussion, and conclusion. That message, take-home message for your audience. Acknowledgement, please do not forget acknowledgement. It's very important as every other part of the writing. Those who have helped you in the work, those who helped you analyze data, those who don't gain entry into the authorship, but they helped in that paper. So please acknowledge them. The literature cited, very important. Appendix will be there. How do I start? Make an outline. Outline will show focus and key points to be considered in your paper. So define your objectives, maximum 3, so that the paper don't get overly broad. Paper should not be like your thesis, so no many objectives. So 3 marks, please. Where to publish, you have to determine that, and in which format do you want to publish? You want to publish in a journal? Do you want to publish in a magazine? You want to publish it as a blog? Do you want to publish it like policy brief? These are all very valid formats of publication for scientists and other researchers. So determine what is working for you, because you want people to use your work. Sequence has to be logical to a reader who has no knowledge of the project. There has to be sequence flowing from one to the other, and decide on place, figures, tables. It may be your maps. Figures can be your graphs. You can have drawing. You can draw. It can be attendance. It can be anything. I mean, it can be a group photograph. So you can have a table for manuscripts, supporting information. Some others may be appendix if they are not really important to understand the paper, but can provide further information. So you can put that as appendix. So those who are interested in in-depth can go for the appendix. So the outline creation will help you to also make sure that some common problems are avoided. The objectives are not clear, you'll find that, and they have not been defined. Too many objectives, you'll find that when you're making the outline, so you can start trimming. Potential readership has not been identified. Who are potential readers for my paper after you've identified what you want to publish? Are they general audience or specialized audience? So if you're doing some kind of, let's say, a gene bank, you're working on sequencing of genes. So this is highly specialized, because if you put it in the public space, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people won't understand. Even fellow scientists won't understand what it means. You put all the sequence of the genes, T, A, the coding system, they won't understand this. So your audience is specialized. So you want to find a specialized outlets. But if it's for general audience, you do so. Presentation has to follow an order, but if you follow just chronological, I mean, the sequence of events, how you did them, and it doesn't show how the information connects to another, then it's still going to be wrong. Maybe you forgot to do something at the point you did it last, so result came last. In reporting, it doesn't have to come last. It should come where it will communicate. It will help to deliver the content. Experiment done is included in the manuscript, even when not relevant. So it's a common error. So you mustn't put all the results when they are not relevant to the storytelling aspect of your work. So the manuscript title, we want to see that it helps you to advertise your research, to give the reader specific. That's why when we're given a title, we have to spend time. So you spend time on all these aspects of the writing, including descriptive words would be very good. What was studied, organism, molecule, reaction, location, material. What was measured, the properties, responses, outcome. So you can find this in some way skillfully in your title. So try not to make it so long. 16 to 18 words will be fine. Consider writing it last. Have a working title. That's what I tell my students. We have a working title. When we finish the work and we're writing our paper, we have a guide. Then when we are done writing, we finalize the title. That's the great way to write. So you also have these three types of title. So the first one would be hypothesis based. If you say mean platelet volume, a link between thrombosis and inflammation. So this is a hypothesis based type of title. So what it means that this is projecting your hypothesis for that research. If you want to derive the title from methods, so we call it descriptive, like this one, assessing the link between thrombosis and inflammation. All these three topics I presented here is acceptable topic for same paper. The difference is that the authors have taken different skills. So first one wants to focus on the hypothesis. Second one wants to focus on the methods or materials and method, whichever you want to call it, depending on your specific discipline. And the third one wants to focus on results. So the results said increased mean platelet volume is associated with thrombosis and inflammation. So these three are acceptable and they are different types of titles. So you want to consider the kind of title that will please you. So you follow on and make sure that it can meet your audience depending on what you want, please. So the types of outcome, I try to open them up a little bit more. Descriptive, I said that is hypothesis, declarative, result, interrogative. Okay, so now research has shown that titles will receive more downloads if they are question type. The question type, which is more of hypothesis, they receive more downloads. Do you want your work to have more downloads, but less citation? People are excited. It's just like people are excited, but when they download, they don't go again. Hypothesis, that research question, when you ask question, people are invited. They want to keep them to stay. So research shows that they have less citation, but more downloads. What are you looking for in your publication? What makes it a success for you? Longer titles receive fewer downloads and fewer citations. So that means it's a no-no. Don't go for longer titles. It's not great for anything, not for download, not for citation. So look at the descriptive, look at what is going on there. It gave the most of citation. So you want to focus your results, your title on results. So because that was found to be the highest in terms of citation. So it's a great way to give your title. Advice, Unless writing a review, try to avoid question type of research. They are good for review articles, not research that you've done from experiment or a similar design, but review articles are great. They said question attract people who are experts in the field because they are looking for this systematic document that you are put together, analyzing all people have done in the field, bringing them up to speed and speaking to them as also an expert. So write short, compact, but informative title. That's recommendation going forward. These are examples of titles. I provided more to show. This one is, okay, I don't want to worry you. It's a lot of jargon. Act through meta. These are all published papers. I just pick up titles. So pterostibane, act through metastasis, associated protein to inhibit tumor growth, progression, and metastasis in prostate cancer. I know Dr. Zena will be happy with this kind of research. So this is just a statement that is coming from the outcome of that study. This is good. Potassium tetroxide catalyzed the hydrogenative acylation of heteroaromatics, a combined experimental and computational mechanistic study. So this is hypothesis. So these are all possible. What are you looking for? Download citation. What are you looking for really? In situ synthesis of phospholipid membrane. This is from results. Synthesis, what you did is to synthesize. So this is from result. So we want to look at abstract. We try to look at title a lot. So looking at abstract, we want to see that you hook the people after the title with the abstract. They have now settled with you because they find your title interesting. Now you want to keep them because we said a lot of downloads, but now to keep them, if the abstract is not good, they run away, no citation, they won't use the work. So how should I continue? That's the abstract that will do that magic. A well-written abstract is extremely important in hooking your readers. Summarized mini paper is what an abstract is. When they read an abstract, they have an overview of what you did, how you did it, and what you found. So they decide whether to continue with the content, the real body of that paper. Oftentimes, that's the only part of your paper that is free on the web. So you have to put all energy to see that you spend your time. If I don't read your work, I make sure I read the abstract. If I don't have time for your paper, my students, when they submit, abstract is a must for me. Because people who publish in non-open access, people cannot read your work except they have the abstract read and they still want it, they pay money to go. So this is the only free version for non-open access. So why do you spend less time on it? Allow readers to find you through the search. They search the paper, they find the abstract. It is always free for every journal. Usually it's a short paragraph with few hundreds of words, depending on what they want. If they didn't give you limitation, make sure you don't exceed like 300 words for your abstract. Consider writing this last, because I said what was done, how it was done, and what the findings are, and the meaning of the finding. That's what you do with abstract. So how can you write it beginning? Some people try to write abstract before the paper. Is impossible because you have to finish the paper before you write an abstract. So do not rush, take it easy. So if you look at the content, introduction, like I said before, what was done, so you're introducing this work, 1 to 2 sentences will be fine. You answering why does it matter? Why should the reader care about my work? Overview of procedure, that means how it was done. So what did you do to get the results that you're so excited about? You want people to read about it, not the method section. It's not the method section, so you shouldn't go simply to pick up method section and drop on the abstract, no. Just a summarized way of how you went about your work. I interviewed 22 patients. I tested compounds against culture cells. Example. So results and discussion, what the outcomes were, because every work needs an outcome. What are the outcomes? What did you find out after all? So the results, what you found out, discussion, the meaning of that result. Conclusion will be, what are the implications? What do I take home? Wait, be careful not to go far or bring new information. You don't bring new information in conclusion. You just want to bring out what you have stated. You're stating what you have stated in a different, succinct way so people can take home that information. So I give another tip for the abstract. Use the past tense. Will be your abstract. Do not write the abstract, this will be. This work will be. That's not an abstract. Do not put will be discussed. I've seen a lot of abstract. They will say, and the scope of that will be discussed. How? If it's going to be discussed, then your readers are going to ditch it immediately to the waste bin. Why do you waste their time? It will be discussed. Discuss it right there. Will be determined. No, tell them what exactly it is. Yeah, you should have it self-contained. It makes sense. It's a complete work. Only that is succinct, is summarized. Okay, no abbreviations are allowed, no references. Don't make the reader search the paper to understand don't say it was more. This would be relative. It was more, it was less. No, give us the percentage. Okay, why the research is important, you should state it. But don't say it's the most important thing ever. Don't use, this is the first time that we are finding presence of oncogenes in this. Don't do that. Who told you the first time? It may be the first time, really. You may be mad to say in my understanding or to the researchers, but why do you waste time? That's not the important thing, that is the first time. What is important? What is the import of finding oncogenes? What is the magnitude of that problem of cancer? Why you found something that can cause cancer? That's what you should rather expatiate on. Use absolute language better. This is better than the first. No. Faster. It's relative. These are relative, so don't use them. Larger, more effective, more viable. No. Tell us about that viability. What metrics are you using to judge the viability? Partner with somebody in your room always to look at abstracts when you are writing. It may be your research members. So I would like you to read this in 40 minutes if you have it, or any abstract that you have written, so you can discuss ways to improve it after reading it, because we've given you a lot of tips for the abstract. But I will still look at this. We will look at this one quickly. The study will determine. So I want you to start pointing out what is wrong with this abstract based on our tips. The study will determine if an anionic amphilic dendrimer, this is of course chemistry, is effective or ineffective. You see, the person is confused whether it's effective or ineffective. You have to decide on one. And remember, we'll determine dendrimers have previously shown antibacterial properties. Hong 2014. Remember what we said about references. We tested a molecule shown in the figure against different cells and measured the outcome. To perform this test, cells were exposed to different concentrations. What does that mean? Different concentrations. So you're confusing the authors. Is it 10, 20, 50? And what is the unit of those 10, 20, 50, and all of that? Next, a metabolism dye was added to the cells of a concentration of 2 by 10 to power minus 4, no unit, and allowed to develop for 2 hours to measure the EC50. What is EC50? Don't assume that everybody's in your field. Finally, the colors were observed on a spectrophotometer with a reading at 490 nanometer, as will be described. Describe it. It was found that if a large concentration of compound was used, then the human cells were more viable than the bacterial cells. Control tests showed other compounds had less of an effect, without a doubt. Why will you say without a doubt? Who told you that is with no doubt? Your reader may be doubting until they go to the detailed results or methods or whichever area section that they're interested in before they say they don't have doubt. So don't say without a doubt. The dendrimer will work perfectly. What is perfect? Who told you it's perfect? You may have other alternatives that are better. Scale your finding as an antibiotic. So that is also this abstract I've just read. So we started identifying the problems with the abstract. Verb tense. Verb tense is the problem here. Will determine, will be described, like I said, as I was reading it. Generalizing, is effective or ineffective. Why? Large. Vague is vague. When you say different concentration, less of an effect. Who told you it's less of an effect? Lack of information. What type of cells? You said other compounds. How do we know? If you want to replicate this experiment, you say other compounds. I don't know. Provide information. Different cells. Which cell did you use? Referrals. Reference. You reference Hong 2014. We don't do that. Image. So we don't want that. molecule shown? You didn't show nothing. So maybe you're referring to the one shown in the result. So you can't say that abbreviation EC50. So nobody knows except those in your specific field. Don't assume. Extensive procedure. Don't copy your methods. You can look at this. You know that it's copy and paste. Next, a metabolism of dye. So if you're writing methodology, you have written one step, you now say next, a metabolism dye was added. So you can see that copy and paste. These are no-nos, please. Do not do them, I beg you. Missing units, work concentration, absolute language without a doubt. Who told you? I say again, perspective would work incredibly well. This is exaggeration. We don't do that in research. Clear summary, not certain what was done or what the results are. You're not sure. You have to be very sure for people to follow you and use your work or sack them. Rationale for study is not clear. So now here we've rewritten the abstract. This is the same abstract we've been dealing with in the earlier 2 slides. So we say dendritic macromolecule due to their structure. We have now put the structure of a dendrimer to become like a graphical abstract before starting. Due to their structure, unique properties and precise composition are of significant interest and are finding uses in an ever-increasing number of medical applications. You're now establishing the problem, how and why is important. A newly synthesized novel anionic amphiphilic dendrimer reported that possesses increased cytologic potency against prokaryotic cells. You see what was done compared to eukaryotic cells. So you compare the prokaryotic cells to the eukaryotic ones. They have maximal effective concentration. See, now you have put the definition. That 50 shows half, and then effective concentration is the EC. So you must define it because you don't assume everybody knows. For the dendrimer, again, Bacillus subtilis. You see, now we have specified the organism, and we have tried to define that organism, a gram-positive bacterial strain. So you added more information. Was measured through cell culture viability testing to be 4.1 times 10 molar. You see, now we're putting the unit. While that against human umbilical vein endothelial cells, you have put the acronym after defining was more than this. Instead of saying perfect, higher, larger. So you have shown that this is more by putting the values. So 1.5 times 10 to the power minus 3. Then EC ratios, because you've defined earlier, you can now use it for 2 commercial amplifiers, sodium dodecyl sulfate. So now you have put the 2 commercial amplifiers instead of saying 2 compounds, Triton X100. So you have defined them so they can reproduce them. And you can find all the details in abstract. In addition to a similar synthesized dendritic structure where mostly only this greater. So instead of saying perfect and better, you have quantified it 3.8 times greater. Instead of saying better, your own perform better. How better? How much better? 3.8 times better. Furthermore, the observed EC50 values appear to be correlated to the critical aggregation constant in solution, suggesting a mechanism of action for these anionic amphiphilic dendrimer related to their supramolecular structures. These biological selectivities of chemical, biological, and clinical interest. So you're underscoring the importance now of your results. So the chemists, the biologists, the clinicians, they all will be interested. You have established that as antibacterials, such as this will be maximally effective against microbial infection without harming the host. Perfect. This is what we want you to do in abstract. So you can apply that to your case. So when you're considering journals, remember we don't want to go to wrong journal because that also can hinder our consumption or the consumption of our content or their citation. I put here journal finder because you're thinking about your audience when you're choosing journal. You're thinking about the prestige of the journal. You're thinking about your own prestige as a researcher. There is a way you grow in the research enterprise that you would like your papers to go to only journals with great reputation. But we want everybody to go to journals of great reputation, but your prestige and those of the journals are also important to consider. Access, whether it's open access or subscription, that means behind paywalls, okay? Those that you must pay before you can see the full paper. Potential impact of that journal. Publication time, assuming you're publishing for your promotion next year, So you want to make sure I publish with a journal that was for a year and 6 months. They kept my paper. So assuming I want to use it for promotion next year, I won't go to such journal because I have a time. Likelihood of acceptance. What are the likelihood? If you use the journal finder, you have them quantified. Use the journal finder. You may have that for Elsevier. They have a journal finder tool. You'll find that one for Teller and Francis. You have the one for Springer. You have the one for Sage. You have the one for Wiley. You have a lot of them. Just put on your Google page, journal finder, and you'll find a lot of them. So they will require you to put down your title, because we said the title is very important to advertise the work. You put the title, you put the abstract, and then you say search. They will return a lot of journals that are related to what you have put in there if you did a good job with the abstract and with the title. Then you look at them, the acceptance rate, you determine whether if it's 50%, 60% acceptance rate, you see that there is higher likelihood. There are some 18%, you may not want to go there except you're a very good researcher, you're sure, or somehow close to it, but nobody's sure because everybody keep getting rejection. This year I've got rejection, even at the year is very young. So we get rejection even as we're very good because of a lot of factors. Sometimes the papers are good, but the journals have number they want to publish in that volume or in a year. So a lot of factors come to play when you are publishing. So if you've identified the journal using the tips I gave in the earlier slide, you want to know the guidelines of the journal. You open the journal, read the journal specific guidelines. That also can make for rejection because you didn't look at their guidelines. So you just posted a generic format. It may attract a rejection. Make sure the kind of article you plan to write is suitable for that journal. Look up any recommended style. If they have recommended style, use APA style of writing, use MLA, use whatever. So make sure you comply with that. Learn about the expected structure and length of the article. Some will say, we don't receive articles more than 25 pages, and you're giving them 40 pages. Somebody is giving 40 pages for max 25 pages. In a local parlance, somebody will say, God is watching you. So to learn about this expected structure and length is very important. Then start writing your paper with the templates. Some have templates. You should use this template to write. They want to make sure that you will comply. They say use our template. Just copy your methods and put there, copy your discussion, put there. So it is advised that you do that because it will save you time instead of writing a long thing and trying to format or comply with it later. So write with that journal you've identified. So typical structure of a scientific journal will obey the IMRAD rule. So if you look at the right, I put there IMRAD. IMRAD is just introduction, methods, results, and discussion. So AutoAid like this IMRAD thing because it just helps you to know that these parts are covered. Introduction, what is the problem and why is the problem? You have to state that on the introduction. Like we say, comply with the specific structure of a journal. So a journal may have introduction, literature review. So you have to separate them, okay? When we go to the anatomy, you separate them. But overly is introduction. So many journals will accept you having that as introduction, all of them background, all of that as introduction. Methods, what did you do to solve the problem you identified? And result, what did you find? Discussion, what is the meaning of your finding? So in IMRAD, we look at the introduction section here. So we want to see an introduction that you have provided background to the work you have done so that the readers can understand the paper, the background, and then help the readers appreciate the importance of that research. So this is the time to bring in scaling. How big is the problem? How small or how diverse is the problem? Or the global relevance, or is identifying with a mandate or global mandate like the SDGs, like those of the African. So whichever one you want to identify with that makes you score the importance of that research, you can use them, align with them, so people can see the scale of the problem. Identify the questions that the research addresses. So the research questions, sometimes you call it hypothesis depending on your field of research. What is the question you are asking? Are there relationship between gender and science? So that may be your question you're asking. So you can ensure that the introduction will capture this. So introduction Basically, we have this typical structure, information on importance of topic. So that's why I said underscore in the background, the information and the importance. You're working on remediation. You have to talk about why we need to do remediation, pollution, contamination, and the widespread. So this is the importance of the topic. Highlights of relevant previous researches that have been done. So you highlight them. This will be literature. And remember, is a funnel. So the introduction will be a funnel. So you have a lot of information, and then you narrow down to the gap you have identified. That's why we call it a funnel in introduction. So identification of unanswered questions. Those are narrowing to your gap. Approach you use to seek the answer. So you end it with objective. Most times it's not written. If you bring out the introduction in many papers you're consulting, if they don't have objective as subheading, you'll find the objective at the last in introduction. This work, therefore, will assess the level of what you did. That's the essence, to allow them. So why do you hold information? Others can replicate, to validate your work, to agree with your work, or to differ or something, because research want to add new knowledge or explain some concept in a different way. So they'll need to test it. They need to do further research if you make declarations, to allow others evaluate what you did, to determine whether the conclusions seem valid. So it becomes a point, a rallying point for researchers to talk about, to determine whether the findings seem applicable to other situations, or it just little research for your own case. It can be opened up to meet other situations. The results session, you report the findings of your research, noting any significant outcomes and highlighting the patterns in your data. So they will include the graphs, the plates. Maybe you have maps, you have maybe sections for those who do biology. You're looking at organs, the sections. Then illustrate patterns and connections in data. If you subject them to statistical analysis, you have some connection to show how they are related, if there are correlations. So you have this in results. And then you present your findings in the same order that the original work was presented. So it helps the reader to follow you. Results should follow the way you reported in methodology. So the first reported method should have the first result. That order should be followed. It helps for uptake of what you have put out there. So discussion of IMRAD, discussion aspect of the IMRAD will help you to interpret the findings of your study. You have showed the findings, what you found out, what do they mean? So you interpret it using the discussion, you connect them to other people's work on the same subject. You discuss limitations of your study. What are the limitations you identified that limited you from getting to some destination? So it also helps when you declare limitations for future research. People can overcome your limitations and get to the next level. The purpose is to highlight the way your results addresses the research questions and provide explanation of any results that deviated from initial expectation. So you make a hypothesis and your results are saying no. So this discussion will help you to explain why there are deviations from your perspective. Citations and references, of course, we have to cite these people's work. We are not talking plagiarism today, but if you cite the work well, you'll be running away from plagiarism. You cite the work in test citation and then listing of the references after the write-up. After the acknowledgements, you should have references where you list the references. But in test, you need to cite using the style that the journal requires you to use or the one you have chosen. Or if your thesis, you're using the one your university approved for your graduate programs. So it gives credit to other people's work so that you don't appropriate their work to yourself. And it adds credibility to your work. People know that you didn't just come out from the blues, you related your work to other people's work and you actually found gaps. And it helps you show how your work is related to previous work. There must be a connection in research. Then readers, it helps them to find further information if you do good citation and listing. So the journey is not easy. The journey goes from identifying the target journal after you have done pre-writing exercise, and then writing the paper using the IMRAD after you've done the title and the abstract, and then checking, revising, formatting the paper per the journal's instruction, then agreeing with your co-authors on the final version, editing English and all of that, the language, because most journals are publishing in English, and submitting the paper. When you submit it, what happens? That's why we say, then what? So we're not talking about the review today because it's not the scope of this presentation, except the need come for it. We can look at review aspect of writing. But I just show these pictures to show that once you submit the paper, look at you there holding your paper. As you don't put it on that relay ground, a lot of people are waiting to block the paper from getting to the destination. But we hope that these tips will help you to skate through the hurdle. So to become a better writing, I want you to write. I want you to write more. I want you to write even more than that. I want you to write when you don't want to. I want you to write when you do want to write. I want you to write when you have something to say. I want you to write when you don't have anything to say. I want you to write every day, like every day. I want you to keep writing. Acknowledgements. I want to acknowledge AutoAid for some insights into this work and some presentation they've done in the AutoAid community that also inspired this presentation. I want to thank American Chemical Society. I belong there in their writing courses. I have some slides I declared from them. I want to thank AutoAid Nigeria Research Hub, which I'm a member and the coordinator of the South Side, like I was introduced, for putting together this from a well-researched assessment, needs assessment they did to find this topic today. And I want to thank my university, especially the Vice Chancellor, Professor Owunari George Will, who quickly accepted to be part of the AutoAid Research Hub when I approached him. And that's why we are here today. And I want to thank all of you for your rapt attention, and I can be contacted here. Waiting for your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Eucharia, for that very brilliant presentation. You all agree with me that she knows the topic very well and she conveyed the message with clarity. That presentation was informative, well organized, and like I said, a brilliant presentation. Well done. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'll just give a recap on what the presentation was all about. Sorry, I need to apologize. Unfortunately, the capacity was 100. We had a lot of people who wanted to join, but couldn't because we had reached full capacity. We apologize for that. The slides and the recording will be shared on the National AutoAid National Hub, the AutoAid National Hub social media platforms. I have already posted the social media platforms on the chat box. So please follow us. The recording will be shared on the YouTube channel, and then the slide will also be up on our slide share. So apologies for those who wanted to join. Apologies for those. So a recap on her presentation. So a recap on her presentation. Can we just mute? Can we just mute? Yes, I can see some hands up for question. I will call you. So she started with, she gave us some tips about fixed versus growth mindsets. And she also mentioned that we should not be threatened by the success of others. And she went on to talk about why publish. We either publish for personal growth or we publish for public gain. She also mentioned the H index as a way of measuring impact. She also took us through the 3 Ps of scientific disclosure. The 3 Ps, according to Dr. Eucharia Nwaichi, poster, presentation, and publication. Then she's also talked about the poster, presentation, and why you don't need an abstract in your poster, except if the organizers request for it. She mentioned that she took us through the poster presentation tips. She also mentioned paper anatomy. She explained what each part and section was all about. And she also talked about manuscript titles. What you should consider while writing your title. And she mentioned that descriptive titles has highest number of citation. She took us through IMRAT, introduction, methodology, results, and discussion. And then in conclusion, she ended with the 10 steps to become a better writer. So thank you, Dr. Eucharia, for that very informative presentation. So now to questions. SMG 988N, you don't have a name there, but your hands are up, so you can please just ask your question quickly. Ask your question quickly. Please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon.
Please introduce yourself.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Gospel Imo Asuko. Can you hear me?
Yes, clear.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, my name is Gospel.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, my name is Gospel Imo Asuko. I happen to be a student during my undergraduate study in Uniport. I'll quickly like to ask my question very briefly. First of all, I want to thank her for this brilliant presentation. She said something about 3Ps, Dr. Kera rather, said something about 3Ps of scientific discussion, which she highlighted that poster presentation is more interactive. I would like to know if that is very common in our environment, like Nigeria, yeah, because I still remember my undergraduate studies during in the university there. Most of the presentations were either were normal presentation, some were slide presentation, but I didn't really come across poster presentation. I would like to know why it's not common or if it's common now. That's my question. Looking at the importance, how interactive it is.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you so much. Your name is not there. Okay, so
It's Gospel, my name is Gospel.
Oh, Gospel, yeah, you say you're my former student. Thank you for connecting back. The poster presentation by design is different from what you find in some conferences in Nigeria, but we are working hard to see that we win it back. If you go to standard conferences, mostly overseas, or some professional organizations in Nigeria, like the Society of Petroleum Engineers, have been to their conferences, posters are great there. So you would see that those who come to your poster, that's why I said interaction is highest than any other disclosure type. So people who come to your poster want to hear about that. Because if you do spotlights, as you just give that spotlight in 2 minutes, people are excited, they come and they want to know more. So you don't miss that opportunity. That's why I said it brings about mentorship, it brings about collaboration, and it brings about research versus cooperation very well. And I've experienced it. I told you I've had some interesting poster sessions from Florida, and I had some in Kenya, I had in South Africa, I've had in many countries. So, and there I grow people, I come back, they keep talking to me because they ask their specific questions. Like in a presentation we are now, you don't have all the opportunity to ask the questions that bother you. And you have to be a little bit more formal when you're asking this question. But in poster, you're not formal because it's one-on-one with the presenter, only you. You know, when you get to posters, you're asking questions, many other people will step back. They give you the opportunity to interact with the poster presenter. And then as you say, okay, have a great day, I'm really very happy, good luck in your research, the next person will take the stage. So it makes people to open up. And then that two-way communication, as you ask the answer, you say, why is it that, I say, can I provide a little bit more information? It may help you clear your doubts. You give that information, but you don't have such opportunity with other disclosure type. That's why it's more interactive, because the people who come, they really want it. In presentations, some persons come because the association want them to go for a conference, or they want to take a photograph where people are presenting, then they put their hands with their camera and then snap. So they may not want to be there, but they are there because of XYZ. It may not be interactive. You may not feel fulfilled after the presentation if nobody asks you a question. But poster, people will with as anybody that sells by there will ask you a question or make a comment.
Oh, that's quite brilliant. I really appreciate. I will send it to my during through your number. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
We have a question in the chat box. Someone is asking what tips should be considered in choosing keywords for paper publication. Can keywords be words already included in the title? Dr. Eucharia, over to you.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Keywords, like I said, choosing keywords are very, very good ways to help your paper get found, because you want to see, you can even do the search by yourself. When you suggest words, you can go online and search those words and see the kind of paper that will come up and see whether your paper fall within those kind of group of paper. If you want to look at them by team or by areas of specialty or discipline or whatever thing that interests you in your paper. So you may want to do a little bit of search. I like to avoid more of single word. For single words, if you like say, if you say clinical, it's too broad. I mean, if you did a clinical study and you don't put clinical. So when people put clinical, it brings excellent papers in 1,000 kinds of studies and fields. So before you can filter down, okay, before you can filter down to what you want, you must have lost interest. So but when you use clinical chemistry, or let's say another thing, what will I be thinking now people do? Okay, let me go to Dr. Fumi's remediation. Maybe say remediation of organics in soil. So you are limiting. So as you're limiting, it makes your paper findable than remediation, all remediation, that whole spectrum of works in remediation. You can be attempting all aspects of remediation. So you have specific things that you do. So I recommend that you try to mix up keywords that will have compound words. So they can be phrase word, clause word. So it mustn't be one word to represent your keyword. And make sure it focuses on your main topic or your main research, not in the area, but the main one. So that way it can help you. So it shouldn't be overlapping. If the keywords are in the title, you may run away from it. You ask me whether it's a good way to choose keywords, because already the title is going to help find your work. So keywords will do another work. So if you have the opportunity, find other words, not those ones and the keyword, okay? And then the journal guidelines, sometimes journal guidelines will be there in terms of formatting, like using colon or semicolon or use comma for the keywords. So I'd like you to try that.
Okay, thank you. Adnan Aliyu, you can unmute and ask your question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eucharia. I am Aliyu Adnan, a graduate student from African University of Science and Technology, Abuja. I really appreciate the way you stressed on abstract and the anatomy of abstract. Please, ma, I have this thought while you were making your wonderful presentation. I don't know if I can apply those components of a good abstract, like the 5 you made mention, in order to get rid of the nightmare we students are having, or which is the research gap. Because most students, when you are trying to go into an area of interest to research, the nightmare there is how to find a research gap. So I don't know if I can make comparison of maybe published papers of the past years, maybe 5 or 10 years. I can put those things together and then make comparison to see if I can find a gap there. I don't know maybe how you can respond to this.
Thank you, Ali, for the question. I think you're asking a question about if you can write a review paper. It depends on your level of expertise as a researcher. I don't recommend that young researcher, young not by age, young by experience. So I don't recommend that young people write review articles, because it won't be read, it won't be used. When people are trying to use, because review articles are great material for policy making. So people like to look at the review author team as people who are experienced, except you're joining experienced people to write a review article. So what is the problem? The big problem you're trying to solve to review and bring up to speed in one document so that people can have it and get it solved. That's the sense of the review. So if there are problems with grad students, you want to do review of what happened in the past to bring up what should happen, to chart a direction, that's okay. But for you to have systematic review has a lot of skills. We may also consider, if AutoAid is interested, how to do systematic review, okay? So you need those skills to be able to bring out the problem. You may just do copy and paste. I've seen a lot of review papers that copy and paste. You go to this paper, you copy this paragraph, you go to this one, copy the other one, and just that way. So you'll be able to identify which come from the paper. If I see 10 references, I can say this one is from this paper, this one from this paper. Is not a good tip for review article writing. You should write seamlessly so that the flow. Nobody can detect that this paragraph is coming from a particular, because from your outline, you have identified the problem, the focus of the paper you want to write. So you'll be able to do seamlessly a body of knowledge that came from all of those great sources while focusing on what you want to project from reviewing where the field is. I hope that helps.
Yes, ma. But the question was that in terms of getting out a research gap in an area, maybe a research area, so can you apply those concepts of abstract component of a good abstract? That was the question, not to review.
Oh, okay. The component of the abstract. Yes, you can apply the component, because finding the gap anyway is in the literature. I told you, when you do an introduction, a good introduction, not the abstract, though I say the abstract has a component of introduction, because you're trying to say what was done, how it was done, and what the findings are. That's what the abstract says. Possibly you get a step further to say the implication of the finding, the meaning of the result, okay? So now in introduction is where you x-ray the gap, where I say you should have a funnel shape. You get a lot of information on the area because you're doing background. You look at what people have done and narrow it down. What didn't they do? What could help? Depending on the problem you identified, and what did they do attempting this problem? Like you have an elephant, somebody looking at the stomach, you're looking at the leg, and where are we heading to? What is it that they've not done that you could do to bring new information or to interpret existing information in a new way to bet innovation? That's what we're trying to achieve as researchers. So if you do this carefully well, so you'll be able to find the gap. It's not in the air. Don't imagine the gap. Look at what people have done and the shortcomings. It may not be shortcoming in the real sense, because if the scope has been defined by the researcher, it's not a shortcoming. But for you, it becomes a shortcoming because you have another direction, a destination you want to head. So these people did not cover this. They didn't do a holistic view of this. They considered 2 locations. You are looking at 3 or 4 or 5. Or they use method that is archaic in nature. You are using newer method or tools to approach this. So you find a gap, what they didn't do that you can do to add value to that course. Does it make sense to you?
Thank you very much. I appreciate
it. All
right. Thank you. So Geoffrey, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Oh, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation, Dr. Eucharia. And it was really informative. Though I came in late, I was among the people who have been trying to get in, but I got in late. However, I have a question concerning, you're talking about this abstract. I've seen where some journals request if you have a graphical abstract. So I don't know, how do you go about, let's say, graphical abstract presentations, or how do you go about preparing that in context of when you have more of a abstract that is wordy, as in is worded, not. So how do you prepare graphical abstracts for presentation?
Yeah, because if we're doing science communication, if my topic today was science communication, maybe I would have talked about that when I'm talking about like mind maps and all of that. So you see that the world is going towards what they can view, what they can see, because research has shown that we remember more what we see than what we hear or what we read. So when you write abstract, if it's very good, it will help to remember. But if you have a graphical abstract, it does the magic more than the word. Some will have both the text abstract and the graphical abstract as requested by the journals. And most times they use your graphical abstract to market the papers. Because as you're looking for a journal that will help you get your destination, getting read and getting cited, the journals also, they're looking for content that can get them read and cited. So it's a win-win situation. So they're looking for this graphical abstract to help them get read and used, because people appreciate when they look at it. So you may want to think about a flow chart in your graphical abstract to translate your information to a flow chart. Maybe a step-by-step. If you looked at what I displayed in that abstract that had graphical abstract beside it, that was the journal format. So a simple flow chart, and when you look at it, you get the idea of what was done, how it was done, and the finding. That's what the graphical abstract does. It's just showing abstract in graphics, not wording. You may not have more than, say, 10 words inside that graphical abstract. There are images, and not just dumping them. Some persons have seen graphical abstract, they are automatically rejected, except they are not good journals. They just pick results, graphs, and dump them everywhere, maybe like 7 graphs on a page, representing all their results, and they say that graphical abstract. Is not, of course, because graphical abstract is doing the same work as the abstract. It's showing what was done, how it was done, and what the findings are. So you are the one skillfully bringing something graphics that will bring the reader to the problem. Maybe pollution, you bring something messy, then, and maybe you have an arrow showing something, a method, how it was done. You can be, if you're skillful, if you're an artist, you can use something funny, not necessarily your finding, to show method. People washing their hands, everybody's washing, to show that it was a collaborative kind of study. So that's the way you can do it. And then you go to findings. You can also use your result as finding, or create an image as a finding. So it's just you being creative to show the subject area, the problem, how the problem was approached, and what the findings are. It won't be very pointed like the wordy abstract, but it gives a reader an idea about what was done, how it was done, and the findings. So it's a very good thing. People like to see graphics a lot.
Wow, thank you so much. That was very informative.
Okay, thank you. I think final question for today, Gabriel.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I have 2 questions. The first one on the part of introduction. You have said introduction included the literature review and the background. Both of them are guided as introduction part. So I want to know, in the part of literature review, what we actually needed to do, contrary to the background. That the differences between literature review and the background, what we are supposed to write on literature review and what we are supposed to write on the background. Also the second one, on the part of method, which kind of method to use in a certain research? Thank you.
What kind of method do you use in a certain search?
Yes, what guide us to select which method should you use in the certain research?
Okay, so I can give a general method for research, because we are diverse in areas of specialties and in our adopted methodologies. Some fields have adopted methodologies that if you don't use them to get to the destination, those results will not be accepted. So I want to, as I'm starting from your second question, I want to tell you, refer you back. That's why you need to connect. As a student, you should be a member of the professional organization, professional society. Let's say you are a biochemist, you have the Biochemical Association, Nigeria. So it's called in Nigeria, called NSBNB, that the Nigerian Society for Molecular Biology and Biochemistry. So you need to be a student member or a full member. That means you're not a student or you're not undergrad student, okay? So you need to belong so you can be abreast with what is happening in your area. You can also read. These are also available. And when you have found a problem and how you can approach it, to do the analysis, to answer those questions that you pose, the research questions, you will have methodologies that are there. But some of the methodology may fail to answer your question. That's why we say, I adapted the method. The method of Eucharia et al. Was adapted and was modified. And in that case, you declare the modification. After reading what people have done with their methodology, you find that this one method is good, but it will fail to deliver on something. Maybe to handle multiple sample size. So you may modify using something that equally will not be good on standalone basis. So you say, I modify the method of that. So this is allowed in research. So I can give a particular method is area-based, is discipline-based. So try and be abreast with your area. That's what I said, that if you have specific question, if you're in my area, I can point you to someone in your area if you're not in my area. But I've done a lot of collaborative research, so I can point out methods in a lot of areas, not specifically mine, because I collaborated with different kinds of persons, chemical engineers, environmental engineers, microbiologists, animal scientists, and plant scientists, all of that. So I can say a little bit more about these areas, but for those areas I don't have expertise in, I can point you to someone. So get into the professional society so you can be connected and improve your network and update on knowledge. So you talked about the background and literature. So in IMRAD, we say introduction, just introduction. And I want you to, in the introduction, find the background and the journal you want to publish in would like to see both segmented, so you can supply the information. The background will be to help your readers, like I say, to understand the paper. You start with a problem. Is a problem, you have to underscore that is a problem. You don't just because you're excited about a field, you start researching. It will be wasteful venture. So you will have to make sure that there's a problem and you need to solve a problem, because any research without problem-solving motive will not stand the test of time. So you're using the background to open up the area to see the problem and the scale of the problem. If you're publishing for local audience, maybe you're solving a problem like someone did the HSC assessment of a center in my university. So it's a local problem. So they're helping to solve the problem of that center, a center of excellence. So looking at whether they comply with health, safety, and environmental requirements of that place, because the place also delivers content on occupational health, safety, and environment. So you can see it's a local problem. So your design will be as such declared. So you may solve a problem that is higher, like regional. Regional may be Africa. Regional in our own Nigerian level may be the states. You also may have a national problem. You may have a global problem. So define your scope, the problem, and make the scale of that problem. So that will be background. So you don't need a lot of introduction, a lot of literature to make this background known. So they can appreciate the importance of the research, that's what you try to achieve with background. Then the literature will help you to see what you have done and your reputation. People can appreciate what you have done because other people have worked in the area. So it's an important area, and there are limitations or there are gaps that were not filled by other researchers. So you have this gap to fill, and you're able to say what happens when this gap is plunged, just like a circle with a hole. So when you cover the hole, we have a whole circle. So what do we gain by covering that hole? You also will establish it. So that what literature will help you do. So you review in a funnel a lot of information, pass them through the funnel of scaling down, and then narrowing to objectives of that research. I hope that.
Thank you, Dr. Eucharia. Okay, the
Thank you.
last one, Johnson Oluwase Ishoriwa. So please quickly ask your question. So we close from there.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Eucharia. And I so much gain a lot from your presentation. And from the beginning, I noticed the fluidity, eloquency, and command of language in your technical presentation. And I think that was excellent. The question is, For those who have challenges in the area of being vocal, ability to actually say what they have in their mind, what advice do you have for them as they are to do presentation? They need to go for skill training, or what can you suggest?
Thank you, Johnson. It is challenging. It's challenging. If you look at my details about different P's, so I said that the poster is a great way for those who are beginning their journeys in research, and also language learners. Some of us, although we say English language is our lingua franca in Nigeria, but it's not really a native language. We have a lot of languages, and depending on where we come from, some patronize their local languages more than the English. So that affects you being fluent in English or even free with writing it, and some can write it better than they can speak it. So man, know thyself, I normally would say. So those who are learning English, like when I had a conference in France, it was very difficult because those native French speakers, they first process the English into French before they can say it. So they now say, okay, I'm sorry. So they are full of apologies. So you should also do that if you recognize the limitation that you have, because you have a lot of your native language or something that is your preferred language. So you can either, if it's a big conference, like in the US, they may have gadgets that you can wear and speak your local language. When I went for a big event, I was invited to in Egypt. So they use Arabic to deliver. They told me, don't worry, because they want to have the best of their scholars. So they told me that most of them may just, like in the last 10 years, Egypt started English is compulsory because the world, that's why the world is heading to. No gainsaying, oh, why should we patronize English? The world is heading there. So they started compulsory learning of English, even in Poland when I went there. So many of their older researchers who are very good are fluent in Arabic. So they made it Arabic as a means of communication. But a lot of foreigners were there, so they gave all of us gadgets. So as they're speaking the Arabic, I could hear my English. The translation was on real time. And then when I needed to ask questions, when I made my presentation, I presented in English and they were hearing Arabic. So technology also has helped us to overcome that. But we need to work hard in case the technologies are not there. Like I've not seen one in Nigeria where we have the technology. So we need to work hard, attend more conferences, make presentations in your research group. A lot of you don't like to make, I tell my project students to come make presentations to me. So if you speak more, you get better. That's why I say practice, practice, practice. Write. Whatever you want to get better at doing, do it. That's the only best way to get better, not to attend a lot of lectures. The one you've attended, practice, speak, ask me. Yeah, so contact me, contact Dr. Fumi, contact anybody in your research team, to your colleagues, keep speaking, keep expressing yourself, and you'll get better. And people who give you great feedback are your best friends. Don't let those who laugh at you behind, and then they come there, they pretend they won't be helping your career. I like to pause people when they make the mistake, I point them to it. And not for laughing, it ends there because we just want to be better. I want people who are connected with me when they go, I get a feedback, they want the best poster presentation, best presentation platform or something. So this is what you should aim at doing. So choose poster. If you have the option, do you want poster or platform presentation, which is the oral? Choose poster if your language is not very great. But find informal opportunity to speak with your peers who can give you feedback, or with your lecturers if you're close to them, or your supervisors, or in your network. Belong to journal clubs where you can speak. We have a lot of journal clubs in AutoAid, Nigeria Research Hub, and even in the bigger AutoAid. So find journal clubs and belong so you can review, speak, and people can give you a feedback.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Eucharia Nwaichi. Thank you for responding to the questions. So we have come to the end of the workshop. So for the recording and the slide, we have shared on the chat box our social media platform. So it will be shared on the social media platforms. For those posting their emails in the chat box, nobody is collecting it, please. So there's no point sharing your email there. And the discussions will continue on the WhatsApp group of the AutoAid National Research Hub Nigeria. So thank you, everyone, and God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Eucharia.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.